Owning 9 hardware stores in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore isn't what you'd expect Gina Schaefer to say she does for a living when you meet the perky, petite 43-year-old. But she and husband Mark Friedman proudly stand at the helm of a $19 million company that employs 175 people. Why did a woman who graduated with a degree in poli-sci and worked for years at the Children's Defense Fund get into the hardware business? We're going to find out today on the Truly Amazing Women TV show. I'm Hope Katz-Gibbs, your host, founder of Incandescent Public Relations and creator of TrulyAmazingWomen.com. So welcome to the show, Gina.
Thank you.
You and Mark own this company and you started it in 2002. So tell us how you got into the hardware business.
Mark and I lived in a neighborhood in Washington, D.C. called Logan Circle. And Logan Circle was undergoing a tremendous renaissance, and we were so excited to be part of it. Retail was coming back, communities were coming back, people were buying old houses and renovating them, and we were one of those couples. And we bought a fixer-upper, and we used to joke that our toilet was always running, our lights were always burned out, and our pictures were on the floor because we were too lazy to walk to the closest hardware store, which was about 2 miles round trip. And I was about to get laid off from a tech job, and I came home one day and I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to open the hardware store.
Wow.
And it sounds kind of cheesy, but that's exactly the way it happened. And we sent emails out to a couple of the co-ops, and Ace contacted us first. And we started looking for financing and locations, and I wrote a business plan. And Mark had a job. He wasn't planning on leaving his job. He wasn't about to get laid off. Like I was. And so we started some research, and I actually rolled really quickly in hindsight. I think it took us about 10 months from getting the idea to getting the funding and then opening the doors.
And so big in the hardware business, has it ever felt weird to you being a girl in a boys industry?
Certainly in the beginning, when I think my confidence was a lot less strong when we first started, and I had to worry about not knowing how to use a particular widget. You know, you hear lots of requests for the thingamabob or the thingamajig or the whatchamacallit, and until you really start to intune what the customer is looking for and what they want to do, those words don't make any sense.
One of the most brilliant things that you do is the YouTube videos where you teach people how to do different things, and it's a woman explaining this. So for women, that's empowering.
One of my favorite stories when we first opened the stores, I had never actually used power tools, and I didn't want anyone to know that because I thought it would lessen my credibility. And I used to be able to say, this is the drill, and this is how it works, and I would always use, it should work, it should work, it should work. And I was explaining this to a woman one day who just didn't get it, like I wasn't getting through, I guess. And so I opened the box, I pulled out the drill, I plugged it in, and I drilled a hole right in the wall, and I was so excited, but I had to act like I was all cool about it because she thought I knew what I was doing, right? But it was the first time I had used a power drill myself. So from then on, I thought, this is ridiculous, I need to know how to use these things, other women should know how to use these tools. Women and men. I mean, we have lots of folks that we've taught throughout the years at our hardware stores, both genders. So, but that was a fun experience for me.
What part of your business are you most passionate about?
Well, the first thing that came to mind is obviously my employees. We have 175, my coworkers, I call them, and I constantly want to grow so that we have more opportunities. So every time we open a new location, I get to promote a new manager and promote a new assistant manager. And as we've grown throughout the years, I've been able to promote folks to do marketing and HR and all of those roles. So that I'm really proud of. We work with a couple local organizations to help give training tracks for some folks, a couple vocational schools. That's probably the biggest. And then secondary, I guess, is my involvement with the Shop Local movement and getting the consumers to really focus on living and shopping and entertaining where they're in their communities. You know, not going to the suburbs to shop or not getting into a car to run your errands. And the movement's getting stronger, and I'm really proud of having a voice within it.
So talk about the programs that you work with to help people who wouldn't necessarily be able to get a job at ACE.
We work specifically with an organization called Jubilee Jobs. And Jubilee Jobs is a wonderful organization that gives folks who have either left the workforce for a particular reason, and it may be because they have suffered from some sort of abuse, it may be they have spent some time in jail, or it may be that they have an addiction that they've been working on getting over, and as they've become more marginalized or less a part of the mainstream workforce, it becomes harder and harder for them to find jobs. We got involved with Jubilee Jobs probably 8 years ago, and we use them as one of our strongest sources for employees. I serve on the corporate advisory board now, and it's probably one of my favorite off-duty things to do. The director is just wonderful, and we place about 1,000 people a year. So it's not a huge amount of people, with a very small budget, but every time we get a new employer in the district or Virginia or Maryland who wants to hire one of our applicants, it means the world to the organization.
Now tell us a little bit about this local effort that you're engaged in.
Think Local First is an organization in DC that is just absolutely wonderful. Again, I seem to get involved with these really small grassroots movements, but Think Local First was created to basically give a voice to the local businesses within Washington, D.C. So we run a variety of programs every year, including a week-long conference on small business. We call it the Do Good Summit. And so it's small business doing well while doing good, and sort of the three-legged stool of profits, people, and passion for businesses, which is really exciting. We ran a very large for us, Shop Local campaign throughout the holiday season. We do that every year to just promote shopping local for the holidays versus going to the big box stores. And we do a lot of government relations, outreach, counseling for small businesses. We run a monthly seminar. We do all sorts of cool things.
So let's talk a little bit about some crossroads in your careers. What was the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome?
When I first moved to Washington, I was working for a nonprofit organization. I thought that was my passion, and that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I was a little burnt out, I guess, and so I decided that I was going to quit and do something new. Well, I moved to Brazil. So I really did something different. I wasn't even going to stay in Washington. So I ended up being gone about 11 months, and I loved it, and I traveled, and I taught English and learned Portuguese, and it was really, really, really a good experience for me. And then I came back, and I randomly met someone who worked for a consulting company, and they needed someone who spoke Portuguese.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it was a tech business, and I didn't know anything about using computers or technology, but I spoke the language, and that's what was important. The client was IBM Latin America, and they needed someone to liaison between the folks in the United States and the folks in the countries. So I took that job, and that was a big crossroads for me because I went from nonprofit to for-profit, became much more technologically savvy, met my husband at that business, so that was a big deal for me. And then throughout sort of the tech boom and bust, had a couple jobs that I worked for and was laid off twice. And so the real crossroads for me was that second layoff when I said, that's it. I've always wanted to own my own business. This is the time. I can't go to another tech company. And I did the complete opposite. I always joked if I ever wrote a book, it would be called From Software to Hardware, because I decided that I was going to run a mom and pop hardware store. I heard a quote years ago that was, you are where you are until you're supposed to be somewhere else. And so I think that's kind of the philosophy that I've tried to live my life by. You're not going to be in the same place forever.
So what is it that you love about being a woman in business?
Well, people find it interesting. Unfortunately, in 2014, we still sometimes seem like a novelty, which it's kind of sad, I think, to say that, but it does open certain doors.
So what is your one big leadership lesson that you want our viewers to take away?
There's so many women that I talk to, women in particular, who are so afraid to do what they really want to do. Everything becomes an obstacle. If you're passionate about something, the answer will come, or you'll find your path. And if it doesn't work, you tried, right?
Right.
If you'll never know if you don't try, which sounds so silly to say, but is absolutely true. So I think that's probably what I say the most, and what my biggest lesson was.
So you're at the top of your career, it seems. What's next? What haven't you done?
I would like to own 10 stores. I purchased a Budget Blinds franchise this year, so I guess I do own 10 businesses. I would like to do a third kind of concept, to do something new. I'd like to employ 500 people.
So what is your top leadership lesson for other women?
I think that the thing that I probably counsel business owners on the most, and particularly women, is to not be afraid. That if you're passionate about something and you want to try something, you have to try it. You owe it to yourself to try it. If you fail, you fail. And I think that failure is as much a part of learning as anything else that we can do in our lives. So just don't be afraid. Try it. What have you got to lose?
As we close every episode of the Truly Amazing Women show, we quote a truly amazing woman that we think reflects back what the woman that we've interviewed said. And in this episode, Gina led us in perfectly to what Beverly Sills, the opera singer, said. You may be disappointed if you fail, but you'll be doomed if you don't try. So thank you for watching the Truly Amazing Women show. We wish you all the best, and we look forward to talking to you soon.